Please be seated. Yesterday, the farmers market started the summer season in its new location with a renewed sense of excitement, celebrating the abundance of the summer season of growth. Seeing so many folks from the church there yesterday, volunteering and shopping, some working, really warmed my heart. The market has come a long way under St. Luke's oversight, growing from a $75,000 budget at the end of 2019 into an $875,000 budget today. That's tremendous growth in just 6 years. In the liturgical calendar, this Sunday, the church commences the season after Pentecost in earnest, which likewise focuses on discipleship and a growing church. It's the great green season of growth. It's also called Ordinary Time and begins the week after Pentecost. Trinity Sunday kind of screws things up, but it's the second Sunday of Pentecost after Pentecost. And it stretches all the way to Advent when we go to purple. The fact that the Jamestown Farmers Market launched just as we are entering this season of growth seems more than a happy coincidence. I have a friend who likes to call these ordinary moments of insight God winks. Yesterday, as I was wandering around the market, after buying my fresh strawberries, greens, milk, mushrooms, and eggs, I paused to observe the activity at the Sprouts tent, which is the children's engagement booth that awards $2 Sprout bucks for kids to spend on fresh fruit and veggies of their own choosing. Often, nonprofits from our community that work with families and children come and staff the booth to connect with new families and to inspire healthy living and community support. Yesterday, it was the Jamestown Farmers Market staff itself who were running the show. And they had this elaborate, black, mysterious mystery box emblazoned with question marks of various colors and 2 small round spherical slots where children could place their hands in. On the other side, the staff had various fruits and veggies that they would place in the children's hands to see if they could guess what each item was. It was fun to watch as children correctly identified broccoli and strawberries, and sometimes struggled to name the limes and spring onions. Correct or not, however, everyone was given a $2 coupon to spend as they wished. Youthful as I am, I could not trick the staff into letting me play, so I could only ponder as an observer from the side. But even as I watched, fingers eagerly investigating and brains pondering and perplexing data points, I realized how much the faith feels exactly the same way. We find ourselves holding experiences we cannot yet fully identify. Some days it's a diagnosis, a disappointment, or a loss. In others, it's a new opportunity or an emerging relationship. We know something is there. We can feel it. We've got clues on what it might be, but we cannot always name what God is doing. The children who played the game were not expected to know everything. They simply were invited to reach in. Faith often works the same way. In today's gospel, I like to imagine the characters playing in that same game. Matthew reaches in. The hemorrhaging woman reaches in. The synagogue leader, desperate, reaches in with both hands. None of them possesses certainty. None of them knows what Jesus will do. But each is willing to place their hand into the mystery of God's mercy. The Pharisees, however, by contrast, seemed determined to solve the puzzle from a safe distance. They ask questions about Jesus, but not to Jesus. They analyze the situation. They discuss the rules. They debate who belongs and who does not. Yet they themselves never seem willing to place themselves in the same vulnerable position as Matthew, the woman, or the grieving father. They refuse to reach in. And perhaps that's where the gospel becomes uncomfortable. Because the real distinction between the people gathered around Jesus is not between saints and sinners, or even between believers and unbelievers. It's between those who are willing to acknowledge their need and those who are not. Where do you find yourself this morning? Are you playing it safe on the margins? Do you imagine that things are completely under your control? Or are you aware of the deep needs that you're trying desperately to hide from others, and perhaps most of all, even from yourself? Matthew knows he needs mercy. The woman knows she needs healing. The synagogue leader knows he needs help. Each of them has reached the end of their resources. Each of them has run out of answers. And so they come to Jesus, not with certainty, but with trust, faith, and hope. The Pharisee needs mercy every bit as much as everyone else in the story. The irony is that everyone in the room is sick. Everyone needs healing. Everyone stands in need of grace. The difference is not need, but honesty. Jesus says, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick." Of course, Jesus knows perfectly well that no one is really well, truly. And so his statement is almost playful, almost comical. It's like a physician is standing in a room full of patients, bleeding profusely, coughing, a total mess, ready to assist them. Some recognize they're sick, others refuse to. Perhaps they know that it's true deep down, as the wound on their head tells them, but they refuse to admit it. The prophet Hosea speaks to the same reality. God says, "I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." God is not interested in our religious performances for their own sake. God is not looking for people who can correctly identify every mystery, answer every question, and maintain the appearance of having everything under control. No, God desires relationship. God desires honesty. God desires people who can finally stop pretending that they can save themselves. That is why Jesus calls the hemorrhaging woman daughter. He restores more than her health. For 12 years, she's been defined by her condition, unclean. For 12 years, she's been treated as a problem to be managed, a burden to be carried, a person to be avoided. Yet Jesus addresses her not by her illness, but by her belonging. Daughter, he says. And in that single word, he restores her dignity. And that may be the deepest healing in all of the gospel this morning. Real dignity does not come from strength or success or status or self-sufficiency. It comes from knowing whose we are, but being in relationship with the Creator. No one can take away the dignity God gives us, but neither can we cling to a false dignity built upon the illusion that we do not need God or one another. As the psalmist so wonderfully and humorously puts these words into God's vantage, she imagines the people like cats, presenting to their master the freshly killed mouse, smugly proud of their sacrifice, as if the cat owner cared about the dead mouse that's now a nuisance. She puts things into that perspective and says, for God's language, "If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the whole world is mine and all that is in it. Do you think I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats? Offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving. Make good your vows to the Most High." You see, the sacrifice that God invites from us is not onerous. It does not really require blood, sweat, and tears. No, it's about a joyful participation. It's about relationship. As I watched those children at the Sprouts tent yesterday, something else occurred to me. Whether they guessed correctly or incorrectly, every one of them received the same reward. The goal was never perfect knowledge. The goal was simply participation. When people made a mistake, they were just as encouraged as those who got it right. Perhaps faith works the same way. We spend so much of our lives trying to identify what God is doing. And sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we do not. Sometimes we mistake a lime for an orange or a spring onion for a leek. Yet God does not wait for perfect understanding before offering us grace. God simply invites us to reach into the mystery, to trust, to risk, to tell the truth about our need, and then to discover that on the other side of the mystery box is not judgment, but mercy. Not rejection, but belonging. Not death, but life. For it is often at this point where our resources end that Christ's healing begins. So as we begin this great green season of growth, I want to leave you with a few questions to carry this week. What mystery are you holding in your hands right now? Where in your life do you sense that something is happening, but you cannot yet name it? What situation are you trying to solve from a safe distance when Jesus may just be inviting you to step a little closer? Where have you exhausted your own resources and reached the limits of your strength? And perhaps the hardest question of all, what need are you reluctant to acknowledge? For the gospel reminds us that God's grace does not begin when we have everything figured out. It begins when we're honest enough to admit that we do not. Matthew reached in. The hemorrhaging woman reached in. The grieving father reached in. To trust that God, who calls us beloved, is enough, and that each discovered that beneath the mystery was a deeper sense of mercy. So perhaps the invitation this week is not to understand everything, but simply to reach in. To reach in and discover our own dignity, our own sense of purpose, our own sense of healing and wholeness. Because it's the God who heals, restores, and raises the dead is already at work in our lives, even when we cannot yet identify it with our own hands. May we have the courage to tell the truth about what we need. May we have the faith to reach into that mystery. May we discover there the mercy of God waiting for us. Amen.